do something special for this one. So what's good, everybody? Thank you for stopping by to visit this channel for this upcoming unbiased game preview. If you want to stay updated with the latest highlights or game previews, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and select all so you won't miss another video. And here we go. Another year, another top 10 matchup between LSU and Alabama in Death Valley. Both teams are coming off a bye week as per usual, and if the college football playoff rankings hold true, I believe this game will be a top 5 battle once again. As we review the advanced metrics, we have two teams ranked in the top 10 according to F+ ranking, which is a combination of S&P Plus and FEI ranking. Alabama is rated in the top 20 in both offensive and defensive S&P Plus, but this will be the highest ranked defensive S&P Plus team they have seen so far this year. Vegas has Alabama as a 14.5 point favorite so far, and S&P Plus has them at a 74% win probability with the scoring margin in favor of Alabama by 11 points. It's difficult to get a read on a team like LSU. If there is anything to say about them as a team is that they are very inconsistent at being inconsistent, but at the same time you can call them opportunistic. If you're confused by that, good, because LSU is a bit confusing at times. Joe Burrow has been criticized a lot for good reason. He hasn't been accurate this year, but if there is one thing you can say about him is that he doesn't lose games for you. So if the game is close, he has a certain moxie about him and he'll make a play for you out of nothing. He'll complete some back shoulder throws and he'll attempt some jump ball passes to his tall wide receivers, and they'll usually come down with it. This offense doesn't rely on efficiency. They are ranked 102nd in success rate and 111th in marginal efficiency, but when they need a big play, they figure out a way to make it. Now offensively, they don't scare a lot of teams, and the numbers reflect that. But defensively, they're about as good as it gets, especially in the secondary. Outside of Devin White, which I'll get into more in that later, Grant Delpit is probably their most disruptive player on the team. Dave Aranda does a fantastic job using him around the field. Greedy Williams is probably the best cover corner in the country, and Christian Fulton is a good Robin to Williams' Batman. They are 7th in the country in explosive plays allowed, and their defense is ranked 3rd in average starting field position. Obviously, they don't give up a lot of big plays, and they make you work for every yard you get when they are on defense. There's not much you can say about Alabama at this point. They're simply good at football, and they have eviscerated everyone they have faced this year. The offense is Metal Gear, Wing Gundam Zero, they send defenses to the Shadow Realm. I mean, you can keep going with pop culture references, but I'll stop. The only knock against them is that they haven't played anyone, but if you boat race everyone on your schedule and not play around with bad teams, that should say something. Tua Tagovailoa has won the September Heisman and the October Heisman. I honestly don't get the Dwayne Haskins is better than Tua argument that is being thrown around the internets, but objective people can honestly admit that he's the best player in the country right now, and Alabama's offense is pretty freaking scary. The defense, on the other hand, has received a lot of heat at the start of the season, but there are a few bright spots on the side of the ball. Quinnen Williams is a nightmare for opposing offensive linemen, and he is slowly rising as arguably the best defensive lineman in the country. Alabama's pass defense is slightly ranked ahead of LSU, but they got some playmakers in the secondary as well. Deontay Thompson has played considerably well since the Sugar Bowl, and freshman Patrick Surtain II has locked down one of the starting cornerback spots since the Ole Miss game. As we look into the matchup between LSU's offense versus Alabama's defense, we notice there is a ton of crimson. In fact, every category favors Alabama. This goes into the lack of consistency from LSU's offense. LSU has an offensive success rate of 39.2%. They're not particularly explosive, rated at 97th in explosive plays, but what works for them is their average field position is 24th in the country, and their turnover luck points per game is at 6.5 for each turnover. Anytime you're finishing in the top 25 in average field position and you're almost converting turnovers into touchdowns, you're doing pretty good. Those two things help LSU generate offense, but if we're being objective, LSU has played strong defenses, which could be a reason why they have struggled so much on offense this year. The average defensive S&P Plus ranking of the teams they have faced so far is 35th in the country, and their success rate on 3rd and short is an astonishing 94%, which is good for 6th in the country. On the flip side, despite the weak schedule, Alabama has played some good offenses. In fact, the average offensive S&P Plus ranking is at 43rd, and they have played 4 teams ranked in the top 40 in offensive S&P Plus. 3 of those teams were actually ranked in the top 25 in that category. Those teams were Ole Miss, Louisiana Lafayette, and Missouri. It's fair to say this year's Alabama's defense is nowhere near the same caliber of defenses they have fielded in the past, but I feel they have been tested on defense this year, and with a success rate of 5th in the nation and a marginal efficiency ranking of 6, they're solid when they play assignment football. If there is one bugaboo as to why they are not a top 10 defense in S&P+, it is because they are 109th in explosive plays allowed. That is the only thing I can pick on about this defense. We see a lot of crimson here when Alabama has the rock. There's not a shock here since there's a push between Alabama's passing game versus LSU's pass defense. This is going to be a matchup we all want to see. LSU secondary versus Alabama's wide receivers. I'm curious to see if LSU will run some cover 1 to slow down Bama's RPO game and test the route running of Alabama's wide receivers outside of Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy is extremely adept at getting separation regardless of who is covering him, and LSU must account for Irv Smith being flexed out when a linebacker is covering him. I do wonder if Alabama is going to test the LSU front 7 in the running game early on, with Devin White being out. Quick side note, I think the rule itself is idiotic and it is written poorly, but based on the stupidity of said rule, it was actually correct in that assessment. But moving forward, if there is a soft spot in the LSU defense, it would be their defensive opportunity rate, ranked at 76 in the country, versus Alabama's offensive opportunity rate, ranked at 4th. For those of you who wonder what opportunity rate means, it is the percentage of carries the offensive line does their job and produces at least 5 yards per carry for the running back. For Alabama, that is at 57.5% of the time, and for LSU, their defensive line allows it 46.7% of the time. For LSU, they must generate turnovers and keep Alabama's offense off the field. They have forced 8 turnovers in the last 2 games versus Georgia and Mississippi State, with a turnover luck of 21 points in those games, and in the game that they lost, they were -2 in turnovers. For Alabama, they must play clean, mistake-free football. If Alabama comes out and scores quick in the first possession, that will take the fans out of the game. They also must weather the storm for the first few minutes of the game because LSU will come out with their hair on fire in this one. The computer really likes Bama this year. It has Bama winning at the score of 52-24. They have averaged 8.3 yards per play this year, and they generally average 98% of what their typical average is on the road. But LSU's defense will hold them to under their usual mark. But it's saying based off of Alabama's production, they're going to get theirs regardless. LSU's production has been hit or miss, but they generally play better at home than they do on the road. They average 108% of their usual yard per play outing, as opposed to their 91% on the road or neutral site games. I don't agree with the computer in this case, and I'll explain why. It's because historically, this matchup between the two teams are usually close, especially the games in Baton Rouge, and it's at night. LSU has not beaten Alabama in Death Valley at night since 2006. In fact, the last home game win was in 2010, and that was in a 2:30 p.m. Central Time game. Other than that, these games are slugfests, and LSU hasn't lost a home game at night by double digits since 2015 against Arkansas. LSU relies on emotion, and their fans really want this game bad. I have seen Alabama go into Baton Rouge with better teams than LSU, and it would still be a knockdown, drag-out fight. But I haven't seen Alabama bring this type of offense down there either. There has been some voodoo going on every time this game is in Baton Rouge for some unknown reason. I'm going to err on the side of caution here, and I think this game is going to be closer than expected. I expect Tua to play all 4 quarters in this one. I don't expect Alabama to score 50, but I do expect them to win the game in a close one to the tune of 28-24. If the game was in Tuscaloosa, I'd probably agree with the computer, because since 2013, Alabama has beaten LSU by double digits when they play in Tuscaloosa. Alabama almost reminds me of that 2013 Florida State team. If you recall, that team didn't play anybody going into their big game against a top 5 Clemson team on the road. And before you give me the revisionist history of we knew just how good Florida State was that year, no, this was their schedule before playing Clemson that year. Pitt, Nevada, FCS Bethune-Cookman, Boston College, and Maryland. None of those teams were ranked leading up to that game, and they played a total of 3 ranked teams that season. And in case you forgot, Florida State hung 51 on Clemson. If Alabama goes into Death Valley and hangs half 100 on this LSU defense and they win by 4 touchdowns like the computer stated, you have my word, Alabama fans. On the next preview I do with them, the first thing I'm going to say is, F it, give them the trophy. So be on the lookout for the talking heads to say something to the tune of, well, when you look at LSU's win over Auburn and Miami, they weren't that great. But that's only if Alabama does to LSU what they have done to everyone else. I am not saying Alabama is going to do that, but be prepared for it if that actually goes down. So for this game preview, that's all I got. Let me know what your thoughts are on the game in the comment section below. Give me your score prediction and also tell me why your respective team is going to win the game. I hope you enjoyed the video. All I ask is that you give the video a like, and if you love college football as much as I do, hit the subscribe button if you want to stay updated with the latest previews and the occasional highlights, and I'll see you next time.